Well, hello everyone and welcome. My name's Andrew from Visa Hero. Well, it's been a little bit of time since I've recorded the last videos, probably about a month, so apologies for that. But here we are, we're back again. So what I wanted to do today is, we're getting a lot of questions related to the skilled independent visa, the 189. So I thought I might have a brief look through that. So I'm just going to summarize the visa for you and then look at some of the key points in terms of whether you're eligible for this visa. This is probably the most popular visa in Australia. It gives you permanent residency once you're granted it. As you may know, it's a points-based visa. It's all done through what's called Skillselect, which is a large online database which you submit your electronic expression of interest and wait for an invitation to come through. So yes, we're going to run through that visa in a little bit of detail. So I've made some notes down here. So as I said, it's a points-based visa. So the minimum points at present is 65 points to be eligible for the invitation. In reality, it's going to have to be a lot higher than that, and we'll come to that in a second. But yeah, at the moment, it's around 80 points to be able to be invited for the skilled independent 189 visa. So as I said, you must be invited to be able to apply. You can't just go off and send your application in like you could years ago. Now you need to wait until you get invited by the government through the Skillselect process. So there's no sponsor required for this visa. So no companies involved. You're just applying off your own back based on your own skills and your qualifications, your experience, your age, etc. So yes, there's no company involvement. As I said, it's a permanent visa. So on grant of the visa, you'd get permanent residency. You'd be able to stay in Australia the rest of your life and live in this great country. Cost at the moment is $3,755. Just bear in mind on the 1st of July 2009 that will increase. At present, the wait times are not too bad. So you're looking at 6 to 7 months processing times. Just remember that's processing times after you've lodged the visa, not in terms of the invitation. So it's in terms of once you've lodged it, 6 or 7 months later, hopefully immigration will make a decision on your application. So that's a little bit of a summary on the 189 skilled independent visa. So we're just going to have a little look and talk about eligibility and trying to work out, am I actually eligible for this visa? So there's a certain process we'd go through to sort of check eligibility. Probably the first step would be, it's pretty obvious, is just to choose what occupation you're going to apply under. So critical, you cannot apply for this visa unless your actual occupation is listed on what's called the medium and long-term strategic list. It's a bit of a mouthful. So in Australia, there's different lists for different visas, so you must check this list. It's listed on the immigration website, so you can check which particular occupations are on this list. So you can't go for a 189 visa unless your occupation's on this list. So that's your first step really, is just to double check that 100% you are actually on this list. Occupations, so some popular occupations on this list would be, you probably know this already, but accountants are on there. Lots of engineers, so if you're an engineer from overseas, you may have a chance of getting this visa. Civil engineers, electrical engineers, electronic engineers, etc. There's lots of medical occupations on there, GPs, general practitioners, surgeons, all the nurses are on there. So if you're a registered nurse, you could have a chance at the 189 visa. There's some IT-based, computer-based occupations. So, for example, ICT business analyst is on there, and programmers are on there. So just have a look through the list at your own leisure. And also at the end of the list, you'll notice there's quite a lot of trades occupations. So if you're an electrician, if you're a mechanic, for example, bricklayer, carpenter, plasterer, these are some of the trades on the list. Just bear in mind that not all trades are on this medium long-term list. Some of them are on the shorter-term list. So, for example, if you're a cook, you'd be on the secondary list, so you wouldn't be able to go for the 189 visa. However, if you're a chef, then yes, you are on this medium-term list, so you would potentially be able to go for this 189 visa in terms of which list you're on. So go and have a check of that list. It's on the Department of Home Affairs website. Just Google Skilled Independent 189 and have a look through the visa and look at the list in your own time, and just make sure and check that your occupation is on there. Okay, once you've sort of done that, then you've decided, okay, that's great, my occupation's on the list. Then what you need then is what's called a positive skill assessment. So every occupation will have a particular skill assessing body who will assess your skills. So it's usually the first part you'd get organised as part of your visa application. So for example, say an accountant would go through what's called CPA or IPA to get their skills assessed. So it's an independent body which has been allocated by the Department of Home Affairs to assess the skills of potential applicants coming into Australia. Okay, so also when you're looking at that list we talked about earlier, just on the right hand side you can check who the skill assessing authority is for your particular occupation. So as I said, accountants under CPA or IPA, civil engineers, and all the engineers will come under Engineers Australia, and most of the trades will come under what's called Trade Recognition Australia or Vet Assess. So just have a check which body is going to be assessing your occupation. Okay, so you go through this process of a skill assessment. Hopefully by the end of it, you'd send in all your qualifications, your experience, you'd apply through the particular application process. It's obviously different for whatever skilling assessing body you're using, and then at the end, hopefully, you get a lovely letter back saying, congratulations, you've passed the skill assessment, and then you can use that letter when you're applying for the visa. So 100% for all skilled visas, not just the 189, you're going to need a positive skill assessment in your particular occupation. Usually the skill assessing authorities are pretty good with their websites. You can go through and follow the particular application process and work out first if you're eligible. Some of them will request experience in the particular occupation. For example, Trade Recognition Australia and Vet Assess will generally ask for the qualification plus experience after the qualification. Others, not so much. Okay, so that's that. So that's your positive skill assessment. Let me just turn over the page here. Okay, then you want to be looking at your points. So I'm sure you've had a look yourself. So just go in again to the particular visa on the Department of Immigration's website. Go into the section on the points and you work out what your particular points are. I think at the moment they've got like a little points wizard on there, so you can put in your details. So your age, your English level, your experience, the education, if you've got a partner, and it will calculate the points for you on there. I'm not going to go into the detail on each of it. I'm sure you can have a look through yourself. As I said, the minimum points requirement before you can even get an invitation is 65 points. However, as we speak, the last invitation date was 9th of May, and sadly they were asking for 80 points to be able to get an invitation. So pretty high for the 189 visas at the minute. This, scratching my head there, got a bit itchy head. This may change on the 1st of July, so just keep an eye out, and there may be more invites and the points may come down slightly of what is required to obtain your invitation. So yeah, so just keep an eye on that. So you can go and have a look at those points requirements. Just type into Google Skillselect Immigration Australia, and you can go in yourself and check the last invitation date, and you can check what points were required. Okay, so just running through briefly some of the issues with the points. Obviously it breaks it down into different sections. So the first one they look at is your age. So great if you're between 25 and 33, fantastic, you're going to get 30 points, which is the maximum for your age. Not so good if you're out of those two ages, but just go and have a check of it yourself. Just remember, it's when you get the invitation, everything freezes. So even though your age in terms of immigration will freeze on that date. English, obviously, the minimum requirement for the 189 is to have competent English. So competent English, if you just Google that again, competent English, Immigration Australia, it'll give you a big list of the English tests and what scores and things you need for each of those English tests. So competent English, for example, is IELTS 6s in each band. Reading, writing, listening, speaking, make sure you get over 6 in each band. PTE or Pearman, I think at the moment it's 50 average in each of the 4 components to get competent English. So I'm talking about competent English there, that's just the basic criteria for the visa, the minimum. You don't get any points for competent English, as you can probably know yourself. So you only get points for what's called proficient or superior English. So proficient is, for example, 7s in IELTS, so 7 or higher in each of your band, or 65 in each of the 4 components of Pearman. There are other tests you can do as well, just go and check them, Cambridge, TOEFL, etc. So just go and have a check of those. If you're super good at English and you've got a fantastic level, then potentially you may get into the category of superior English. So that is 8s in IELTS, 8 or higher in each band, or I think it's 79 in each component for the PTE exam. So if you get superior, fantastic, you're going to get an extra 20 points on your points test. If you're getting proficient, well, you'll just get an extra 10. Just remember, if you've only got competent English, the 6s in IELTS, or the 50 average, then obviously you can have no points, but you will meet the basic requirements for the visa. Okay, after English, so they look at experience as well. So this is a very, very important one you get right with these skilled independent visas. Okay, so you can get up to 15 points for overseas experience. So if you've got 8 years in the last 10 years, potentially you may be able to get 15 points on the points test. Remember, it's in the last 10 years. So if your experience is prior to 10 years ago, you can't use it for this purpose. So it's only 8 years in the last 10 to get the maximum points. But yeah, for all of the bands, it's essentially in the last 10 years. So just double check that. Just a little note on that as well. Just make sure that the experience is in your nominated occupation or a very closely related occupation to your chosen occupation. You need to be very, very careful that you've got very, very good references and evidence of pay for those particular jobs that you've done in the past. So yeah, the more evidence you put in of your experience, the better it's going to be. If you're not so sure and you don't think you're getting over the particular year band, then it's possibly better to be more conservative and drop down a band to a lower point score, because you do not want to get invited for the visa and then not be able to prove you've got this level of experience which you've put in Okay, and then you've got on the other side of the coin, if you're in Australia, potentially you may be able to get points for your Australian experience. I think it's up to 20 points for 8 years in the last 10 years. And remember, with the points for the experience, you can only total it up to 20. So you can't add up to higher than 20 in your overseas and your Australian points. So you can have 10 and 10, which is fine, but you can't have 10 and 15. The maximum you can claim is just 20 points for your experience. And what else? So education, so that's another one where you can get some good points. Most people fall into the category of having a bachelor's degree or a master's where you get 15 points. You can also get 10 points for a diploma, recognised diploma, and potentially you can get 10 points for a trade or an apprenticeship in a particular trade as well. And more points potentially you can get is what's called the Australian study requirement. So you may be able to get 5 points there. So if you studied in Australia for 2 academic years, it was a registered course, it was completed in 16 calendar months, and you were authorised to study while holding a student visa, then potentially you may be able to claim 5 points for the Australian study requirement. Obviously, if you're overseas, that's not going to happen, and you're applying from overseas. Another 5 points potentially can come through on the partner. A partner which is under 45 can get competent English. So as I said, IELTS 6s or 50 in each component in PTE. Fantastic. So essentially they'll also need, which is a bit more difficult, they'll need a positive skill assessment as well from an occupation on the same list as yours. So say you're doing it as an accountant, obviously your occupation is on the medium long-term strategic list, as we said. Well, your partner needs to have an occupation on that list as well. So if they're a civil engineer and they can get a positive skill assessment through Engineers Australia, fantastic. You're on the same list, you can potentially get the extra 5 points. Okay, so partner points under 45, competent English and having a positive skill assessment on the same list as your occupation, maybe you'll get the extra 5 points there. So that's a sort of breakdown of the points. I won't go into every other facet of the points because it's pretty detailed, so I won't go into that too much. Just to say, I'm sure you're aware, the process of applying and going through Skillselect. So as I said, a few years ago, God, must be, don't hold me to this, 5 or 6 years ago I think it was, maybe longer, you could just apply for visas yourself, send in the application and apply for the visa. But for these skilled visas, these invitation based visas, you've got to wait to be invited to apply for the visa. So it's a way of the Department of Home Affairs, I suppose, filtering or vetting out and only inviting the best and the brightest into Australia. That's the thinking behind it, I guess. So what you do is put an application into the Skillselect database called an expression of interest or an EOI, put in all your details, and you wait to be invited. If you don't get invited, sadly you'll fall off the list after 2 years and you'll have to resubmit your expression of interest again. If you do get invited, yes, fantastic, happy days. If that happens, then you get 60 days in which to apply for the visa. So once you get your invite through, 60 days later, once you get your invite through, you get 60 days in which to apply. I'm sure it says it on the invitation you'll get through, and I'm sure you know this. It's super, super important you get your application in within that 60 days to make the application for the visa. If successful, fantastic, this visa, you're going to get permanent residency, happy days. You can stay in Australia the rest of your life. You can live in any part of Australia. You're not restricted on the 189 visa. So it's a really good visa if you can get through and get one of these 189s granted. When we're assessing applicants, we always see if we can get them onto the 189 as a first port of call, because it just gives you a bit more freedom than some of the other state-based visas. So you're not restricted to stay in particular states in Australia. You can work, you can study, you can go and lie on a beach in Darwin for 6 years if that's what you so wish. So you're not restricted in any way. So yeah, you get your permanent residency and can stay here. Okay, so that more or less is it. So I hope you found that video useful, all about the skilled independent 189 visa. If you did, please go ahead and subscribe to our channel, because we'll be bringing you lots of videos similar to these in the future. And yeah, thank you so much everyone for watching, and we will be in touch very, very soon. Have a great day. Take care.